Happy Monday, everyone. Today we are looking at Joseph once again. We left off Saturday with the character of Joseph. His brothers sell him into slavery. And our scripture reading today is Genesis 39 through 40. Now, this is, chapter 39 and chapter 40. Okay, so not just verse 40. So 2 chapters, a little bit longer of a reading. But let me encourage all of you, if you've fallen behind, you've only missed 12 days or 12 readings thus far if you haven't read any. And if you're watching this right now, you probably have heard some of these and read some of these. But in case you've totally fallen behind and this is the first thing you're seeing and the first one you're reading in the Great Bible Truths book, catch up. Take the time and read through. I don't even care if you go back and try to listen to all these. You can if you want. It's easy when you drive or working, whatever. Sometimes people tell me, it's easy to put it on while they work. Okay, that's great. But I really, really want you to read the text from Genesis to Revelation with us. So the more time you put in and get with these stories, the more you're going to get out of it. If you tune in once or twice a week and just hear what I have to say, but you're not reading the text, you're not going to get as much out. So go back, at least read the text. If you don't have the book, most of you guys do, but if you don't, just read the Bible passages I'm bringing up each day. So again, Genesis 39 through 40. Our title today is A Good Man. The story is on Joseph. He gets sold by his brothers into slavery. Now he gets taken to an Egyptian's home. So the Ishmaelites sell him to the Egyptians. And he is... the Pharaoh has a officer named Potiphar, and Potiphar puts Joseph in charge of his household. He sees, it says that God is with him, that Yahweh is with him, and sees that God is blessing what he does. And so this Egyptian, although he's not a Jew, sees that God is with Joseph. It's this phrase here was interesting to me. Yahweh blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. That is verse 5 of chapter 39. And so there was a blessing that came to others around Joseph, even though those people weren't trusting in God or knowing of God really in this time, right? They had just heard of God. They would have, each country would have their own gods, but those are idols. Those are false gods. Joseph had the true God. But remember, Joseph just being there brought God's favor, perhaps to show the people that I am the true God, right? That my hand is upon Joseph. And we don't know how many Egyptians converted or this or that, but it's telling that God's blessing followed Joseph. That's simply what I wanted to state here in this text as I read it. That was one of the things that really popped out at me. But he resists the advances of Potiphar's wife. And the wife here is a seductress, right? It says that Joseph is young and handsome, and she wants his attention. And she probably had gotten many young men's attention, and is attempting to cheat and be unfaithful on her husband. But Joseph denies these advances because it would be wickedness towards God and towards his master. And so he resists sin. If you read it, you see the story. She falsely accuses. She grabs his robe and pulls it, and he runs out, and she tries to make it seem like he came after her. He's thrown into prison, interprets 2 of the Pharaoh's what would you say, workers, the chief baker and the cupbearer. The cupbearer would be a person that would taste and eat the food of the pharaoh or of king, and that is to make sure that you aren't poisoned, that no one's poisoning the king, because you'll eat it first, and if they look at you and you don't say that tastes weird and roll over and die, then maybe the food's safe, or there's a good chance that it is. So Joseph interprets these dreams. For one of the guys it's good, for one of the guys it's bad. But the cupbearer, who the message is good for, Joseph says, please remember me when you get out of here. And the guy forgets about Joseph. So that's the 2 chapters there in a nutshell. The questions are, why was Joseph so successful when he first came to Egypt? And the short answer there is he simply trusted in God. He was faithful to God. Despite the circumstances that he found himself in, he was faithful unto God. And I will say one other thing in that chapter that really stood out to me is Joseph's faithful to the God. He resists sin. He does not commit adultery. And he's thrown into prison. He's thrown into the dungeon. But it says God was with him, right? God's favor was with Joseph even as he was in that dungeon. It's verse 23 of chapter 39. The keeper of the prison didn't look after anything that was under his hand because Yahweh was with him. And that which he did, Yahweh made it prosper. The thing I wanted to point out there is that although God is sovereign and all-powerful, he allowed Joseph to be falsely accused, thrown into prison, put in a very bad situation. And yet God's favor is with Joseph in this very bad situation. And as we'll come to, God will take him out of this bad situation. But it's just to remind us that sometimes we might find ourselves in situations and we're asking, why does God let this happen? Rather than, as Joseph did, just thankful and looking to God to deliver us from the situation and wanting God in the midst of this trial. So that should be our perspective. Allow God to minister to us in the midst of the trial, not ask why we're in the trial. Second question. Notice Joseph's attitude towards sin. Could you also say no to evil and yes to God as Joseph did? So that's a personal question. That's a question I would discuss with your family. If you're doing a family devotional, look at that situation that was before him and discuss it. And hopefully you can, if you're honest and say, I don't know if I could say yes to that. You could look and ask, how would I be able to come to a place where I would be able to say no to sin? Maybe talk about those things. Third, can you explain Joseph's rise to a position of responsibility in prison? Again, that's a good question to talk about. So how would you explain it? I would simply point out one thing, faithfulness to God. His faithfulness to God. People saw his character, that he was faithful, and the Lord blessed him, and people respected that. So if you want to throw some comments in here, there's always things that you can add into the conversation. I'm just throwing some things that, come to the top of my head. You guys might have some good thoughts. Sometimes you guys text me those thoughts, but things in the text, and I appreciate that. And it's good. If you want to throw them right here in the comments, allow other people to see them. That's great too. So love to hear you guys' feedback. Keep reading, keep praying. We'll see you guys tomorrow.